Hello, Broken Arrow. This is the Vibe Broken Arrow podcast. I am Aaron McCulloch, and this is City Manager Michael Spurgeon, and we are here to talk about the upcoming 2026 General Obligation Bond Package.
Yes.
Now, when we first met last quarter, the first 3 months of this year, we talked about the process and how this has been going for 2 years. It's been 2 years in the making. Really exciting times because now we have the big, beautiful book, as you called it earlier.
That's right.
And I mean, we're really in the throes of this thing and getting closer and closer to having these projects finalized. But first, before we do all that, let's talk about this book. Let's talk about the meetings that we had on June 18th, City Council had with user groups. And I just want to get your feelings on where we are right now in this process.
Well, Aaron, as always, it's great to be with you, and I do appreciate the opportunity to provide our citizens an update on exactly where we are, what has happened, and what will be upcoming in the 2-year initiative that we're currently in the middle of with regard to taking a new package to our voters in April of next year. And it is exciting. I mean, obviously, the last year we have spent gathering information about what projects and initiatives that the citizens would potentially like to see in the next bond package. We've coupled that, and some of that has been the same, with the projects that didn't make the bond package in 2018. For those that may remember, is that when we started this process in 2018, we presented a package of projects to the City Council of around $311 million, and to keep it at no change in the tax rate, we had to whittle that down to $210 million, and that's what was presented to the voters. Well, there was $100 million approximately worth of projects that we actually looked at and determined that they're still viable, so they're a part of that process. During the last year, the residents mentioned a number of those projects, and so there's been some commonality in terms of what projects that the voters would like to see from that initial package of 2018 until where we are now. But it's been exciting. The administration and staff has worked very diligently to gather as much information through surveys, community discussion, meetings with user groups for the sports facilities, public facilities. We've had conversations with HOAs. We've had conversations with our partners at the Broken Arrow Chamber of Commerce and EDC, as well as the Broken Arrow School District, the superintendent and his team. Some conversations that I've had with the school board president about what's important for our community. And so that's what I'm excited about, is that this process has been very community-driven in determining what potential projects are in the big, beautiful book.
When you mention user groups, who are you talking about there, just so folks understand? Are these, because these are groups that are actually using our public facilities, is that correct?
That is correct, Aaron. So all of our sports facilities, for example, the city owns those sports facilities. We have user group agreements with each of the different sports to partner with them on certain aspects of how we schedule play.
Like Broken Arrow Soccer Club with Indian Springs Sports Complex.
Exactly. Okay. Broken Arrow Soccer Club. We have youth baseball. We have youth girls softball. We have adult softball. We have football. We have, and I think that's basically the majority of the main organizations. We also do some work with lacrosse. So I'm very excited about the services they provide to the kids, both in terms of league play as well as tournaments. And then other user groups are those groups that we have agreements with that utilize our facilities, such as the senior center, as well as the senior annex, the Military History Center, the History Museum and Genealogy area, the Veterans Center, for example, and then Arts 302. Those are city-owned facilities that we have agreements for those organizations to operate out of, to provide great quality of life type services to our community.
And we got to hear from a lot of those user groups back on June 18th. Before we get to that, what I want to get to is, as you affectionately called it, the big, beautiful book here. Talk about this just a little bit, because I remember in our podcast that we did during the first quarter of this year, you talked about getting together a bond book and getting that over to council so that they could start individually looking through it, kind of getting an idea of what city staff has put together, what the user groups have put together, and what city staff has put together with input from the community. So talk just a little bit about this and why it was so important to put this big book together.
Well, I'm excited about the big, beautiful book of all the projects and initiatives, potential projects and initiatives, because nothing has been selected yet. And twofold. First is that when I started here in 2015 and we had to gear up to present something to the voters in 2018, there wasn't a lot of information that I had. There were a few projects that staff and the council members mentioned, but we actually had to go out and do surveys and gather information. And it was kind of tough, quite frankly, because you can have a great project. You still have to get estimates on that project. You have to determine the scope of that project, all the costs associated with it. For example, if it's a road project, seems real simple. You want to widen this road. Well, you have to go out and get estimates to actually do the design, number one. Secondly, is that you have to anticipate how much money you're going to need to acquire right-of-way if you don't have enough, which means you've got to work with the property owners on both sides of the road. You have to anticipate are you going to relocate any utilities, because in certain instances, we have to pay for the relocation of those utilities. And then finally, there is the cost of actually doing the construction to complete the project. So there's a lot that goes into that. And so I decided that when we do this again, I spoke to the council members. I said, let's look at this as a program and not just one initiative. And so this book has well over $1 billion worth of projects in there. We've taken all of our roads in the community, all of our facilities, drainage, stormwater, parks and recreation, and we've looked at this as a multi-year type initiative. And so whatever projects make the package next April, there'll still be a number of projects that aren't really going anywhere. Obviously, there's more projects than there are actually funds available. And so in the mid-2030s, the leadership of the community will be able to pick this book up, cross off what was included in the 2026 package, and then they'll be able to start from there, update the estimates, and then do their due diligence to gather more information about what projects the citizens and businesses at that particular time would like to see. The second thing I like about this book is part of what I just mentioned at the end of the first part, is it's so comprehensive. Mm-hmm. I mean, the projects that are in there cover all four of our infrastructure corners, which is streets, basically stormwater, mm-hmm. Parks and recreation, and public safety. And so when you look at making up the corners of our foundation, you got to look at your city. You got to look at your streets first. You got to look at your facilities, because facilities, as we're a growing city, they may need to be expanded. Also, every facility, just like our home, needs maintenance. And so at some point, you're going to have to replace the air conditioner. You're going to have to look at the roof, the siding. There could be improvements to the interior. Your family may grow, and you're going to need expansion. And so this program covers what I believe comprehensively everything that we should be considering. And what's cool about it is, as we've talked about, many of the projects, if not just about everything, has come from comments we've received from the community about what they'd like to see to help maintain the great quality of life within our city.
And you mentioned replacing HVACs and some of these really big ticket items. And one of the things that I like to consider when I think about this is capital improvements and budget. And you think about your home when you're going to redo your kitchen. That's a big capital improvement. That's not a budget item like swapping out your garbage disposal. That's kind of the process here, because the city cannot pay for capital improvements through the sales tax collections. Is that right?
That's correct. I mean, obviously, we're very blessed with sales tax to help pay for the operational costs associated with maintaining a great quality of life within our city. But the cost of the projects, for example, to take a road from 2 lanes to 3 lanes could be approximately $6 or $7 million, depending on the amount of construction that's going to be necessary. To take a road from 2 lanes to 5 lanes, it could be up to $10 million if there's going to be a bridge involved. Our intersections, we've determined that the estimates to basically make an intersection fully functional could be $3 to $4 million. So that type of revenue is not available. And if we did it on a pay-as-you-go basis, very little would be able to get done. Because it costs so much, and with the fast-growing community, to meet the needs of the citizens today, as well as make sure that we meet the needs of the citizens in the future, general obligation bonds are a perfect way to actually come up with the revenue needed to be able to do the projects and initiatives that we need for our city.
Speaking of those projects, this book has about 275 projects in there. Like you said earlier, not all those projects are going to be able to make the final cut whenever it comes to 2026. And that's because this is going to be a no tax rate increase bond proposition. So with this, and then talking about the user groups, let's get into that meeting on June 18th.
Okay.
Let's talk about that. So user groups came in, and just how did they address council, and what was their goal as far as their presentations were concerned?
The engineering and construction department for the city, at my direction, went out a year ago and started meeting with the user groups, both the sports and city facilities, to talk about the fact that we were beginning this initiative and for them to vision what they would like to see at the facility that we partner with. And I think that's where you have to start, in the sense that what is the vision? What would all of the organizations, our partners, would like to see from their perspective to enhance the programming, to basically enhance the opportunities for people to actually come into the facilities, to provide opportunities for recreation, to actually, the senior, for example, is the senior citizen group that we work with does an amazing job. We have one of the best senior citizen programs and activity center in the entire state of Oklahoma, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I think many that have been here would agree with that. We have folks from around the Tulsa metropolitan area as well as around the state come look at our facilities and our programming and like to mirror it, because we have a comprehensive programming for those that are a part of the senior center to make sure that they remain active in every single way. And believe me, the seniors today are different than the seniors that were just 20 years ago in terms of what they'd like to see to remain active. And so we've taken a comprehensive view of this. So that's how it started, with getting out there and saying, hey, we're going to do this, get your vision together. Then we started actually putting estimates together based on their vision, so we'll know exactly the dollars we could be talking about. And then during this process, we've tempered everyone's expectations, because I can share that all of their visions are, if I would say most, if not all of them, the dollars that they need are going to exceed what we would have for that proposition. So I believe that'll be proposition number 4, which is city facilities. Mm-hmm. And so they've all been asked to not only come up with a vision, but then to prioritize what they would like to see from that vision. And so at the meeting on the June 18th with the council, they presented their vision, and they listed, the council saw all of their projects, and then they basically pared it down to what their priorities are to help basically continue to partner with us and provide great new facilities that we might be able to present to the citizens.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when softball, I think Mr. Schaefer is his name, got up and spoke.
Robert did a great job.
He had said that something along the lines that they had about $24 million worth of projects that they proposed to be included. But then he said his top 5 were around $8 to $10 million. So it kind of gave council an idea of what it was that they felt, that softball felt that they truly needed, girls softball out there at Arrowhead Park, what they truly needed for that next generation of softball players out there.
Well, Robert did a great job. I mean, he covered it so well right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. And so it was an incredible way.
He did set the standard really well for others.
He did. He came out of the gate strong. Him and Carol, they do an amazing job of running the youth girls softball program, and they have for many, many years. And I want to send a shout out and kudos to them for the great job that they do. All of our sports facilities have started to age. Mm-hmm. They've been around for many, many years, and there's improvements that need to be made, because not only do we want to make sure that we maintain a great place for our kids to play or adults to play, we also want to look at these facilities as an economic development driver, because we have league play during the week and sometimes on the weekends. There are tournaments that they hold which actually bring many, many teams from around Oklahoma and the 4-state area, maybe even further depending on the tournament. They come into our community and they stay for 2 and 3 and 4 days. They fill up our hotels. They use our restaurants. They use our other retail services while they're here. Buying Gatorade and water, for example, is a huge basically expense during tournaments, especially when it's in the middle of July and August. In addition, we want to create entertainment type opportunities for them to actually do things between games. And so I see, and I know the council does it well, more importantly, the council, is that these sports facilities, they are economic drivers within our city that help our businesses. And so they're starting to age and to be dated a little bit. So his $24 million number probably included, because I don't have it in front of me, was not only the facilities for games itself, but also the infrastructure around it. And so as a part of this package, council is going to be considering what to do about updating our facilities to make sure that we continue to be a viable place to play for both leagues and tournaments, Aaron.
So that's a great synopsis of the user groups. Let's shift course over now to some of the city items, and that's going to be your transportation Prop 1,
Okay.
public safety Prop 2, Parks and Recreation Prop 3. And there's some things in Prop 3 that obviously include the user groups as far as sports is concerned. And then as you mentioned with the other user groups that are non-sports, that's going to be in Prop 4, which is public facilities. Let's talk about transportation.
Okay.
As you like to say, asphalt and concrete kind of
right.
rules the day. Do you have an idea, and I think you mentioned it in there, approximately what percentage that may be put on the transportation proposition?
We will know in early August exactly the total amount that we're going to be able to submit to the voters that will ensure that is a no tax rate change, which means that folks who have paid property taxes will continue to pay the same amount that they've been paying as a part of this package. I've always believed that asphalt and concrete, or proposition number 1, it's going to drive your entire package, because it's one of the most important things, I think, when it comes to our citizens about transportation, how they get to work, how they get home from work, how they get the kids to soccer practice or baseball practice. I mean, roads are huge. People don't like to be inconvenienced. They want to see the city have a robust plan, which we do. And so from my perspective, when you look at the total package, you've got to break it down by percentages about how much money is going to be committed to each project, and council gets to make that final call. That'll start to come into focus. Now, to answer your question specifically, is I believe that the transportation portion of the package needs to be somewhere between 45 and 50%. So hypothetically, I think we're going to be somewhere around $400 million. That's just an estimate.
That's the total package.
The total package, yes. Thanks for that clarification. So that means that at least 180 to 85 million, up to 200 million of that package needs to be asphalt and concrete. That would include road widenings, intersections improvements, funds for street maintenance for the neighborhoods. Sidewalks. Just going back to street maintenance, is that we're a growing community. We have a lot of subdivisions. And so it's important that we take the street sales tax money that we get, which usually is around $3 to $4 million a year, and combine that with funds from the bond package. Like in 2018, we put about $2.5 million, the equivalent per year in that package to combine that. And so we want to make sure we have adequate funds to basically maintain the streets that are already here that we're responsible for, mainly in our neighborhoods. And as you know, there's a huge initiative right now, 26 neighborhoods, approximately $26 million. And so there's other improvements. For example, we want to make a connection potentially at the Arrow Forge, our innovation district, to Norfolk, to actually make it much more conducive for folks that are going to be working in the innovation district to get over to where all the commercial businesses there at basically the Aspen Ridge development. There's other improvements that we could be making. I'm excited about not just the road improvements, but also the intersection improvements that in some cases can enhance the movement of traffic without having to widen the road at this time. So when you're looking at priorities, I think on this package, in the end, I don't know what streets are going to make it, but I can say that council will probably have a category of road widenings. Then there'll be a category of actual intersection improvements that will be made to make them more fully functional. There will also be sidewalk work. There'll be funds for street maintenance, and there could be some other specialty projects that are going to basically do enhancements for either economic development or actually going to be able to move traffic in a much more effective and efficient way around our city.
Yeah, it's really exciting, especially whenever you start to give those figures, that 45 to 50%, you talk about 180 million, possibly 200 million. You look back at 2018 bond, that was $210 million total. So there's a possibility that we could be right there pretty close to spending just on transportation what we spent on the entire 2018 bond. How does that work? How is it that you had $210 million in 2018 and there's a possibility, and like you said, we won't know until August, we may end up having a capacity of about 400 million. How does that work? How does it go up, that 190 million, not a math major here, but
Sure.
190 million over a 10-year period? How does that all work out for the folks at home?
Let me start off by sending a shout out to Broken Arrow voters. Broken Arrow voters, our citizens have a history of supporting general obligation bond packages for the city and the school district. As you know, in 2023, the citizens went out and they approved a bond package for the school district that was a lot of the general maintenance type improvements that need to be made to continue to make their facilities functional. And I send kudos out to the school district. Those propositions, I believe all of them, there were 4 or 5, got up close to 80 or over 80%. And so there's been a long history, and I want to acknowledge that and just show my appreciation and thankfulness for our citizens understanding the importance of a capital improvement program and the need to come to the voters periodically and ask for projects. And that's why I think it's incredibly important, Aaron, that we be transparent this entire process about how the projects were selected, how we narrowed them down, that ultimately what was selected, and then we do a great job of doing public education about the project. So how do we go from $210 million to approximately $400 million? Really, it's a combination of, number one, we are a growing community, so our assessed value has gone up. For example, the assessed value when I got here in 2015 was around $750 million. Last August, I think we surpassed $1.3 billion. So you've had almost a doubling in the assessed value. So that creates capacity for additional opportunities to consider bond packages. And secondly, is some of the bond packages that were approved previously by voters, that debt has rolled off. So you look at the capacity from the debt rolling off and the increase in the assessed value, and those two combined factors allow for us to look at what could we present to the voters that would represent a no tax rate increase in the property tax rate that you pay, which is incredible. And we are truly blessed as a community to be able to say that it could be around $400 million. Most communities in Oklahoma don't have that potential. As a fast-growing city, I like to say that we need to be looking in the future, but we've got taxpayers and we have citizens right now that want their roads upgraded to be able to accommodate what's happening today. And so that's what I like to focus on, is make sure we're taking care of our folks today. Of course, there's always going to be more needs and wants than there is funds available, but also look down the road and make sure that we're planning correctly and we're making improvements such as intersections. So if we can't widen a road from 2 to 3 lanes, we can go in and make improvements to an intersection where there's starting to be a lot of traffic. That'll move the traffic and allow us to get into completing other projects, so the next time we go to the voters, that project or the need to do that intersection will have already been taken care of.
What else excited you about this? I know transportation, that's one of those things that you can talk about all day. I mean, you can talk about this stuff, all of these propositions all day. Was there one proposition or was there one idea that really struck you as just, man, that's awesome?
Well, I can tell you, I'm excited about the whole big, beautiful book and all the projects in there. If I could narrow it down to just a couple, okay? I was excited about the projects and initiatives that are in the Parks and Recreation. That's quality of life.
That's
okay?
right.
There's going to be a robust package for public safety, new fire trucks, potentially improvements for training for our police and fire out at the training center, some other great initiatives to make sure that we continue to be a very proactive police department. City facilities, there's always going to be a need, and we got to work really hard to justify why we need this, because citizens always look very closely at public facilities. The Parks and Recreation package. In there right now is a new community center, potentially in Elam Park in the southwest part of our city. So if that makes the cut and council approves it, makes it to the voters, voters approve it, then eventually we would have Nienhaus to the north, Central Community Center right in the center of town, and then in the southwest, one of the growing parts of our community, we could have a brand new community center that's at least got a walking track in it, because a walking track, indoor walking track, was big in the surveys we did. That's a $40 million proposition. There are other projects that could be in that proposition. One is about $6 million for over the next 10 years, redoing all the equipment in our neighborhood parks, which obviously we're a community that we like our neighborhood parks. I hear about it all the time. Mr. Spurgeon, Mayor and Council do too. Let's make sure we maintain, because the kids want to make sure their kids can have great place to play within the park.
That's right.
Not just the regional parks like the Events Park or Jackson Park, for example. That's exciting. The sports propositions, obviously, having been an athlete, formally and informally my entire life, I know how many people like to play sports, albeit soccer. Parents love to basically, for their kids to be involved in sports. And so that package is very robust. And so I am very excited about it. And the other thing I'm excited about too, and this is not something that everybody really thinks about, is stormwater and drainage. I mean, we just went through a period of 45 days or so where we've got an unprecedented amount of water. And what that does, it shows our vulnerabilities, where we actually need to make improvements, albeit on city property or a combination of private and city property. And those propositions 5 and 6, which I believe it will probably be, will allow us the funding we need to go in and address some of the longstanding drainage problems that every community has them. Broken Arrow always takes a proactive approach of trying to address them.
I'm glad you brought up stormwater and drainage, because I was going to ask you what the difference was between the two, because there's a significant difference between the drainage proposition and the stormwater proposition. You want to expand on that just a little bit?
I do. So proposition number 5 will be your traditional stormwater projects, where we've got improvements that need to be made in either a specific neighborhood or on a regional basis. That improvements need to be made, go in, actually either widen the basin, make and improve the infrastructure to get the water to the detention or retention pond, and making sure it functions correctly. And then there's proposition number 6. The city, for the first time, did this in 2018. There is a statute that allows you to spend public dollars on private property if the problem is a combination of both, where normally under law does not let you spend public dollars on private property. But this proposition, and it requires 60%, not just the traditional 50.1. Last time in 2018, the drainage proposition got around 74%. In fact, it was right up there with streets in terms of the highest priority, because there were some areas that we identified, for example, near the Indian Springs Sports Complex, the Indian Springs, basically the golf course, where there were some huge problems, and we were able to fix those problems with that drainage money. And it, like I said, it got well over the 60%. So you'll have your traditional drainage areas that you need to maintain and improve, and then you could be a combination of public-private property where drainage money, and we've identified a number of those projects that could benefit our community in both propositions.
And you just hit on something right there at the end that benefit your community. In order to be able to stay within state statute, to use those public dollars on the private property, there has to be a benefit to the community as a whole. And then that's how we came up with the Drainage Advisory Committee. This is a board that we have here locally that goes through the submissions that come through, and that's how those monies from that 2018 bond are currently how they're allocated to make those repairs. Is that right?
Well, that's correct. So when the voters approved this proposition back in 2018 for proposition number 6, we knew there were a couple of projects that needed to be done, but there was also additional funding. And so the council came up with the notion of creating the Drainage Advisory Committee, which is made up of, I believe, of 2 council members and some citizens at large. And I can tell you, if you ask the council members what is one of their favorite committees to serve on, I think you'll find out those that have served and those that currently serve, they really like the Drainage Committee, because you get to, number one, interact with citizens that are having real problems that they need help. They need the city's help, whether it's something that happened years ago that wasn't done correctly, or things have changed, and so therefore there's a need to provide some benefit to the public by doing the improvements that have been recommended. And we've gone in and done a number of major improvements, or we've contributed to a project that could help those citizens. And so I think proposition number 6 is extremely important. It could have several $1 million in that proposition when all is said and done, Aaron.
And then there's a proposed proposition 7. This is a group that's not a user group traditionally, but as we talked about with our public facilities or as far as the sports groups, and that's Tulsa City County Library.
Yes.
They were in. This is something new. You want to talk about exactly what it is that they're looking at and what we're potentially thinking about helping them out with?
Oh, yes. I'm glad you brought this up, because it's something you're going to start our citizens. are going to start to hear more about. And so last fall, I was with the executive director of the Tulsa County City Library organization, Kim Johnson, who actually lives in Broken Arrow. Her and her team do a great job. Kim's amazing to work with. So I have periodic meetings with her to find out what's going on. We have 2 libraries in town. We have one in the Rose District, and they have one down south on New Orleans. She advised me, she gave me an update. She had advised me about a year earlier that they're in the process of upgrading or building new libraries. I believe there's 24 libraries in their system countywide. And looking at the priorities, South Broken Arrow is one of the libraries that they want to put on their list for improvements. The project's she shared was around $12 million. And the library board itself has committed $7 million, leaving a $5 million delta in terms of being able to meet the funds. So there's a private initiative going on and trying to raise funds in Broken Arrow. $5 million, that's a large amount. And so I asked legal to do a review of state statutes and the Constitution to determine, is it possible legally for us to put a proposition before the voters to help with that funding gap? And legal came back working with the legal for the library board and said, yes, there is a way to do it. It has to be a separate proposition in order to use any funds for this partnership that we have. You're going to be hearing more, I know you know this, but our citizens are going to be hearing more about how heavily used the South Broken Arrow Library is. In fact, it's one of their top libraries in the whole system. And so it's exciting to see that there could be a partnership with basically Tulsa County, I call it TCCL, to actually present something to the voters. And so we could have a question in the next 45 to 60 days. What do folks think about such a partnership, to see where that would fall? I mean, obviously, several $1 million, and you got to balance that out with all the other projects that we have to consider. But when you look at the benefit to the community, this could be something that could eventually make the list for voters to consider next April.
And that question you talked about was a survey, a very short survey, kind of like the ones that we've done in the past for Parks and Recreation, public safety, roadway improvements. We're looking at putting something out to the community just to ask them about the library and their thoughts on potentially helping them out. So just wanted to clarify that just a little bit whenever you said the question there.
Let me just send a shout out to you and your team. I mean, we've done a lot of surveys in the last 15, 16 months, and we've done a lot of research and determined that in Broken Arrow, based on our size population, you only need about 600 to 700 people to take a survey with that standard deviation of just a couple percent either way, to have a good pulse of how, if everybody took the survey, to know exactly what the opinion would be. What I've been proud about is the fact that our surveys that we've done have all gotten at least 3,000 respondents. Several of them got over 4,000, I believe. And so we're getting the kind of response that I feel comfortable. Obviously, not everybody took the survey. Some people have taken some surveys. Some people haven't taken other surveys. But the combination of responses that we've gotten, I feel very comfortable that we have a good pulse of what our citizens think about certain projects or initiatives we've been willing to consider. And so we could be doing a couple more. We're getting ready to wrap up the one about public safety, which will be done early this month, and you're going to report on the results in August. There could be one about the library. We could have one about sports facilities and a possible opportunity there later this fall. But obviously, we want to continue to gather as much information and the opinion of our community so we can put a community-driven, robust package for great projects in April of next year.
Yeah, I've really been impressed with the engagement from the community on those and really appreciate them providing that insight and that feedback for us. Going back to the meeting, wrap it up as far as the meeting is concerned. What actions did the council take?
Council took no action. Not one project was eliminated. Not one initiative was eliminated. They're not going to do that. And obviously, with having well over the amount of money that I believe we will have to consider, the council said we're not going to be starting to, unfortunately, eliminate any projects or initiatives until after the public forums, which we're going to be having later this summer. Council asked a lot of questions. They asked for some additional information about a number of different projects and initiatives. They asked staff to look at other roads. For example, we had a list of roads that the residents and staff had been getting a lot of feedback. Council members asked about other roads that they would like to see considered and asked us to move those up in terms of priorities. There were questions about our sports facilities. There were questions about our city facilities, how best to utilize those facilities. And obviously the council members have a very important responsibility of, bottom line, it's the public's money. It's not none of the organizations. It's not my money. It's not your money. It's the taxpayers' money. And so I have 110% confidence that the council members are going to put together a package that they believe represents what Broken Arrow wants. And so that's why education, transparency is extremely important. And so what they did say, they want to move forward with the public forums, which I know you're going to talk about. So we're basically in the next phase, and I'm sure you probably want to talk about what that consists of.
Oh, well, I was going to say, I think you may have looked at my script here because you mentioned the community forums, and that was going to be my next thing, is that they didn't take any action because they really want to be able to have that face-to-face interaction with the community, talk to them about what's important to them, so that way they can really start to make that really difficult decision on how they're going to break down $1 billion worth of projects, I think you said, to probably around $400 million. Again, we won't know that number until early August. But these community forums, we did them in 2018. I think it was actually in 2017 prior to the 2018 vote. But we did them back then, talk about how beneficial they are and why it's so important that we're able to do at least 3 of these community forums to give people the opportunity to come in and talk and to provide their feedback just face-to-face.
Well, I considered the meeting we had with the council member the close of one phase and then moving into another. So this next phase will start with, there'll be a video coming out next month from me talking about the same thing you and I are talking about right now, just a much more condensed version. The next step will be, there will be a letter going out in utility bills from my office that actually summarizes exactly what has happened in the original phase, which was the information gathering and what happened on the 18th of June. And it'll also have information about the dates, times, and locations of the 3 public forums that are going to be held. One's going to be held at the end of August, and 2 are going to be held in September. They're crucial. We're going to give the public an opportunity to come out in what I would call the Department of Transportation style forum, to where we're going to be in a large room and each proposition is going to be in a certain area of that room. So it's going to be a large room that folks can actually go and they can look at. We'll blow up some of the pages from the big, beautiful book that show here are some of the priorities that we've heard from citizens, council, staff. What do you think about those projects? But here's all the projects. And we'll basically gather information and tally up what we heard from those citizens from those meetings. There'll probably be a short introduction and welcoming to everyone that comes. You just don't have to come to one meeting area. If you want to come to all 3, what's going to be really cool about the initiative is the fact that you'll have directors, council, I believe you'll have representatives from all the user groups, from our city facilities to our sports complexes. They'll all be there. They've all been invited, plus the library, Tulsa County City Library representatives will be there. You can engage and find out why this is important and have a good conversation like we did back in 2018. They were extremely well attended. All 3 of those meetings that we had a lot of folks, a lot of questions. Like I said, no decisions were made. And so I can tell you, going down to the proverbial wire, some priorities changed based on those meetings. Folks said, hey, we'd like to see this, and that may not have been in the highlighted area. Council took a look at it, and they incorporated some of those projects. And so we encourage folks, there's going to be more information. I know your team's going to do an amazing job of putting out information about when there's going to be held. But I encourage everybody, once they find out about those meetings, and we're holding them late in August, so everybody get the kids back to school, get things transitioned from the summer into the fall, let all that transition that happens every single year out of the way, and then we'll begin to gear up for the public forums.
So from what I'm hearing from you, it sounds like it's going to be somewhat of an informal meeting. It's going to be very interactive. We're not going to have somebody up there with a PowerPoint going through a PowerPoint. It's going to be one of those things that if you want to come in and you just want to talk about transportation items, you're going to be able to go over, ask your questions, and then you're going to be able to move on. If public safety is your thing, you're going to be able to go over to that group and talk to them. You're not going to have to sit through a 2-hour-long meeting to get your questions answered. You're going to be able to just go straight to the area that you want information from. Is that what I'm hearing?
Nobody's going to have to listen to me talk for 2 hours. Okay.
Well, I mean, we appreciate that, though.
No, yes, exactly. I mean, it's all about the citizens coming and learning about the projects and giving their opinion. Council members love to engage with the public. I know they're very excited about it. They already have them on their calendars. They're just excited about the opportunity for citizens to come and to talk about the various projects. There may be some people that are not happy about what we're considering doing, who maybe have their minds changed about why this is important. And I'm sure at some point we're going to have more discussions about, because I hear every now and then from people go, why can't we just do pay as you go? In fact, a gentleman came to a council meeting, I think 2 meetings ago, and said, why do we have to do this? And why can't we just do pay as you go? Well, I mentioned a little earlier, but folks have probably moved on from that part of the podcast, but I think we need to make sure we provide good education about why this is the most cost-effective way to be able to provide public improvements within our community. But it's going to be a great session, very informal, and we're going to start later around 6:30. Gets time for folks to get home, get something to eat, change clothes, and then come on out and basically enjoy this public policy process, which I think is one of the most important things we do.
Well, I can't wait till late September when you and I will be back here again and we can talk about those 3 meetings, what we learned, and then update the folks on what the next steps are thereafter.
I'm excited about it as well. There's so many things still happening. I mean, the hard work, I got to send a shout out to some folks. Shannon Marshall, who is in engineering construction, Charlie Bright, the entire engineering construction team has done an amazing job trying to make sure we have good numbers. Our consultant, Jacobs, who put the book together, has been very instrumental in helping us make sure we got accurate numbers. So I'm very, very appreciative. We've got an internal steering committee that's made up of citizens and our partners at the chamber and the school district, and also Build a Better Broken Arrow. At some point, they'll be weighing in. They'll be attending the meetings. There were, I think, 4 or 5 of the committee members that actually attended the meeting on June 18th, and they sat through some portion, if not all of it, because they wanted to hear what the user groups were saying as well as the feedback from council. So at some point, they'll move into the lead in terms of making recommendations, but I'm sure they'll be there as well. And so there's a lot of heavy lifting left to be done. Your team has done an amazing job of basically communicating all the directors, the council, spending a whole day. It's very taxing to actually spend the whole day listening to these presentations, but they understand the importance of every person being heard, and that's what I'm excited about with how hard they work and making sure that they're listening to the citizens, and they'll have another opportunity to engage with them when we do the 3 public forums.
And before we get out of here, I'd just like to say that if folks are interested and weren't able to come to the presentations on June 18th, where a lot of those presentations were put together, a lot of those projects were out there, we have the videos of each of those presentations on the city website, so it's easy for you to find, and it gives you an opportunity just to go through and see, and they're all broken out by each user group and then by each proposition as well. So it's a really great opportunity just to do a little bit of homework, I suppose, and just find out a little bit more about the process.
Well said, Aaron. I think anyone who takes the time to look at some or all of the meeting will go away well informed on what's being considered. And the book of projects is available for folks to actually look at if they want to dive in deeper about the projects. And I would encourage someone, if they want to look at it, any council member they all have a copy of the book themselves. My office has a copy. You have a copy. I believe the city clerk has a copy of it. And so if a citizen or business owner, operator has a question about any of the projects, they have access to the same information the council members have. They can look at the book, and then they can contact my office or any of our elected officials to talk to them about the projects and let them know why they think that's a priority or why they don't think that's a priority and why something else should be a priority. And so, once again, nothing's been decided. In fact, I don't believe anything's going to be decided until probably towards the end of the year. Then obviously, at some point, it's time to cut bait, so to speak. So we'll have to actually pass an ordinance with the projects that are listed, and that'll come in the early January to mid-January of 2026 timeframe.
Exciting times.
Sure is.
Let's do it
Very
again in
blessed.
September.
I look forward to it. I just want to close it out by thanking the citizens. We always thank the residents whenever it's a bond project that we've done a groundbreaking or a ribbon cutting, because without the support of this community, none of it would be possible. And so obviously, we live in the greatest country in the world, an advanced society, one of the best cities to live in the state of Oklahoma, in the country. We have our challenges too. And so believe me, all of our team is working hard. The council's working hard to try to find the best projects that are going to maintain the great quality of life, because when it's all said and done, that's what it's about, Aaron.
The Vibe Broken Arrow is produced by the City of Broken Arrow. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to hear more about Broken Arrow, the city where opportunity lives.